Hey guys, doing a little update today. Um, I'm outside, kind of sitting at a picnic table right now. Uh, kind of nice to be doing these videos in more peaceful environments recently, um, especially because as I'm coming to you guys with this video today, I have been somewhat not at peace actually. Uh, I've been doing better since the last video that I made where I had a couple rough days. Been back on track, but just been really dealing with a lot of like tough emotions recently, and sometimes it's just really hard, guys. I've been taking all the steps to uh, keep myself grounded and stay busy, but even if you do all the right things, sometimes emotions are just hard to deal with, and sometimes it can feel like this is kind of the point I wanted to get across with this, but sometimes you can feel like there's so much that you can't handle it, and then that's when you resort to these coping mechanisms or unhealthy patterns. But the thing is, you actually can take more than you think when it comes to this stuff, and that's something I've kind of had to remind myself, not just today, but a lot of times recently. Um, Sometimes you just have to let yourself feel things and allow it to pass through you. Um, but it's been kind of interesting because I've been doing pretty well, all things considered. Like, for someone that has been in my situation, I'm actually doing better than like most people that I've talked to who have gone through similar things. My job is going well. Um, I'm enjoying living in my new place. Um, I've been reconnecting with a lot of friends recently. I, in a lot of ways, I'm really kind of doing about as well as I can be right now. And even in terms of like self growth and emotional stability, I've been making a lot of improvements. And yeah, I've had my weak moments just like everyone does, but they've been very short lived, thankfully, though. And like, I feel like I'm coming out of each one better on the other side. And it's almost like each one has been a lesson for me to get to this point that I'm at. Um, and yeah, after what happened last week with the kind of rough patch, sorry, these birds are loud, but uh, I basically, sorry, those birds are so distracting today. They're almost gone, but I after I went through my rough patch, I immediately kind of like went off of social media for the most part, and definitely not checking it for the first hour or last hour of the day. That's always been huge to me in terms of just keeping my mental state in check. And I did a couple nights ago. I had an event for the work that I do, and I did get a few drinks with people afterwards. So I wasn't feeling so great after that. Um, but I it probably wasn't the best decision, and I'm not going to do it again anytime soon. But I was able to kind of regulate myself afterwards, though, and even though I did that, did not I did not go off of any of my other areas of discipline. So overall, I think that it's been going well. But other than that, um, I definitely did notice kind of like a dip in my mood after that happened, and a dip in kind of just like my overall feelings of confidence. So it's nice that it's kind of like starting to return back to its normal state again since then. But it's annoying that it, like, every time that happens, it's always like a little bit of a bump in the road where, like, you start to have these old feelings come up again of, like, feeling like you're not as like you're more worthless than you think you are and all this stuff. And it's just, all of it is just these things that our brains feed us to kind of like almost keep us in the addiction, like believing something about ourselves that's not true. And that's something I've talked about a lot in recent videos, is like changing what you actually believe about yourself being the first step of change. And yeah, you really have to change your core beliefs. And I think in order to do that, you really have to examine like what your thought patterns are doing. Because if you find that your thought patterns are giving you these same thought loops that you can't seem to get out of, you really have to sometimes study that and ask yourself, okay, where is this really coming from? And a lot of times it may have been something from our past that, somebody close to you, like a family member or somebody you were friends with, or even a relationship, like somebody said something to you that maybe dug a little deeper into you than you care to admit sometimes. And you really have to study that and say to yourself, like, okay, is this something that actually is valid, or is this something that I'm believing because of something that somebody else said, or because I have allowed this to get into my subconscious mind? And the thing is, if you don't want to be a certain way in your life, like if you don't want to be somebody who is, let's just say, like somebody who is easily frustrated, or you don't want to be somebody that is jealous or something like that, you don't have to be that. It's not just as simple as that we're a slave to these things that we have happen to us, like the jealousy and stuff like that. Those are normal emotions, but if you allow it to manifest itself and you put all of your focus into those feelings, you start to almost like identify with them, and then suddenly it's like you're not the same person that you were, that you believe yourself to be, or that you would like to believe yourself to be. And I think in order for us to get closer to that version of ourselves, we really have to stop feeding that negative emotion and start to nurture the healthier ones. I'm starting to sound like a life coach or something right now, but I have something I actually wanted to bring up in this video too is, I think that we can become addicted to anything. And recently I've started even noticing in myself that, like, I've gotten a little bit addicted to like these kind of self-help like books and things like that. And I don't think self-help is, I think that's obviously way better than other addictions, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it is important to realize that, like, we can become reliant even on things that are good for us like that. And we do need to learn to emotionally regulate ourselves. And I'm saying this to myself too, not just to you guys, but it's important to, yes, you can use those resources like self-help books and everything to help you improve your life. And it's not a bad thing by any means, but if you become so reliant on those things that, like, you find that you're not really like actively doing things to better yourself other than reading these books, like something I've kind of fallen into recently is I'll notice I'm not getting as many daily tasks done as I would like, because I'm kind of like sort of using that stuff to cope with these difficult feelings that I have been having. And it makes sense, you know, I had an unhealthy coping mechanism, and now I'm kind of trying to use a healthier one. Um, but it's just good to be aware of that too, because it's not just one thing that's just going to be the magic answer. Like, I can read as many books as I want to, I can think about it as much as I want, but it's not going to, there's nothing that needs to be solved, if that makes sense. You know, like, I think sometimes we can feel as if we just solve this one thing, or if we just fix this one thing about ourselves, then everything is just going to like suddenly become great. And that's really not quite how it works. You know, like, it will put you in a better circumstance for things to become great if you work on those aspects of yourself, but it's not just going to magically be like, if we direct all of our focus here, then suddenly things are just going to like completely shift in our lives, you know? So that's something I've been thinking about, you know, like, you got to, I think too much of anything can be a bad thing, and it's important to just, you know, everything in moderation, as they say. Like, good to do self-help, it's good to exercise, it's good to do all these things, but if you become like obsessive over one of these things, I mean, unless it's like your career or something, and that is like what you're really driven towards, then totally okay to be a little obsessive. But like, if you feel like you're doing it to sort of like fill a void, though, then I think sometimes you do have to examine that a little bit. But anyways, that's kind of all I had for today. Things are slowly kind of turning around. I do feel, on one hand, pretty positive about everything. That being said, you know, there are still moments where I feel kind of dark. There's some darkness in the light right now, but we're getting through it. It's all going to be all right, is what I remind myself. Anyways, I'll update again soon. Thanks for sticking around and watching.